Hello and welcome to Clawful Evil Probable Claws, a show where we discuss Wildbow's most motherly work. I'm your conniving hostess, Kipos.
And I'm your very villainous hostess, Vice Versailles. In this debriefing, we're covering Chapter 3 of Arc 6, Bear.
And look, I feel like I've been saying this every week, but obviously our recording schedule has been a bit fucky. But every chapter.
I think I can read your next line. Are you going to say, gosh, what a chapter?
Yeah, pretty much. God, what a chapter. Damn, I mean, finally we get Natalie's point of view, and it's so perfect. It's so everything. The way that she always calls Ripley Camellia.
Yeah.
The horror of her fucking childhood. Well, everything.
Notably, she always calls Ripley Camellia until the very end, where she refers to her as Ripley.
She does?
Yeah.
Cool.
Which is really sweet. Because I feel like what we're really seeing here is a woman who is scrambling to keep up with the world and scrambling to find a place in it, and is not in a place for this sort of growth that she wants for her, but that people want for her and that she wants for herself, and
that she needs, really.
That would be the stuff that we as a community have all been going, you can do it, Natalie, with various degrees of sincerity and kindness. I think
are you implying something about the way that I talk about Natalie?
No. I've been told. I mean to say, the people that were in Discord saying, for fuck's sake, Natalie. And what we really get to see here is just barely her cresting that slope. Just the almost the moment where she moves from the negative into the positive. And it is a journey through hell.
It is a journey through hell.
And we get to follow her every step of the way.
Yay, it's great. I mean, it's a really good chapter. It's very intense. So I guess similar to last week, we have both read the next chapter, 6.4. It's just, as soon as I read 6.4, I messaged Vice Versailles and was like, we need to do 6.4 by itself. So 6.3 is by itself this week.
I think if we could do a 3-hour special, we could talk about both of them as a diptych where the two of them play off each other. But hopefully we can just provide that by volunteering analysis in the context of 6.4 and then getting around 6.4 with that integrity in mind.
We will try our best to not reference anything that happens in 6.4, but similar to last week, we have the context of what happens next.
Given the story is, I believe, almost over.
Yes, definitely.
I am not going to be reading the chapters ahead anymore. I'm going to just leave them be. So, should have some fresh confusion to lead us in for the rest.
Good, yes. Should be good. Right, so shall we do today's chapter summary?
In 6.3, Natalie, soaking in the sweat of her hazmat suit, watches in a mental mire of hate and bitterness as Mia and stupid sexy Carson plan an escape route through a burning building like it's just business. Ordered to assist carrying their jugs of chemical weapons, they turn away from Danny's room, that's Valentina's brother, and tell some Cavalcanis to live and let live. The parents trade threatening snips between family bonding exercises, Camellia refereeing while they dig a bowl to make mustard in. When Brian is shot, Mia goes full Mama Bear, hauling the injured child and explaining her brain damage to Natalie. An argument breaks out, which just isn't fair. Natalie reflects on Auntie O and her shitty cousins, crowding her because she's just so cute, or because she'll surely cry. Years later, Sean sleeps through Natalie's muted cries for help, and she swears to protect her baby. 11 years after that, with police closing in, Natalie recommits to that promise. To Ripley.
Oh, yeah. I mean, good stuff. We're going to get into a lot of that when we go through the chronological note. But for now, our last week's BS prediction, I said that offering that one analyst $350,000 wouldn't work, but it's definitely going to work on the other two. And, well, it could still happen.
I actually don't think it can still happen, because I'm pretty sure it was one of the analysts that shot Brian.
That's a good point. Mia's not gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mia is going to offer him 350,000 years in hell, and
Yeah.
and he will be personally dragged there by her.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. Yeah.
My BS prediction was that not only does Carson die and Brian survive, but Mia and Natalie both get arrested for kidnapping Brian.
Could still happen.
I'd like to note that I'm still thinking that Brian would be the only survivor here. And this is the chapter where Brian gets shot. So, I think I'm about to be, for the first time in the entire podcast, wrong.
I wouldn't put money on it. I think there's still a hope.
Kib, I'm excited. I never get to be wrong. I love being wrong. That's why I say so much random shit.
No, it's not going to happen. He's gonna survive. Even through having all of that lovely chemical weapon gas pour into his suit through the bullet hole.
Yeah.
He's going to be fine.
Surely a person who has, substantially less lung volume, substantially less body to poison will be able to respond to a small amount of poison in a normal and easily survivable way.
Yeah. Especially because he has no other traumatic things happening to his body at that time.
Yeah, it's not like there's a bullet wound or anything.
No, that would look, if that was true, that'd be pretty bad.
I mean,
thank God that didn't happen.
A bullet to the center of your mass. I mean, that's basically a death sentence. Like there's organs,
especially as a child. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you even operate on that? Like, it goes all the way through. We don't know for sure, but internal bleeding, infection, even if he does get to surgery, and right now he's being hauled around, so it's probably ripping in all different directions. But yeah, it's crazy that only Brian gets to survive.
Yeah, he's gonna live. Everyone else dies.
Because I'm always right, which is just a shame.
It is a shame. Anyway, that's kind of a depressing thing to talk about in our BS predictions.
My dear friend earlier today said that the medication that I'm currently taking, the antibiotics and the pain medication, has left me without a filter. So, if the bit goes on for too long and takes a turn toward the depressing, stop me.
I will try. I'm not historically very good at that. I also like running bits into the ground. So we'll see how we go. So just before we jump into the chronological notes, let's talk about the fact that it's Natalie. Finally, we get Natalie's perspective. She's been such a powerful figure throughout this entire book, either as ally or antagonist or victim, and it's so good to finally be able to get her perspective. I really enjoyed it.
The thing that really jumped out to me, because it starts up on that descriptions of the way that she prepared for Mia and Carson, and the way that her preparation isn't working. And it really fits to that model of how misery is comparison. The way that she registers information wherever it's coming in from is how it is conceivably a critique of her. She's a real raw nerve, and the very existence of Carson's tone of voice, the way Mia holds herself, the individual actions that she takes out, it's all registering to her as threats or a point of criticism or a reason to feel less than. And I really understand how that sort of scarification in your brain, right? This being caught in that mire of pain so regularly would get in the way of whatever practical progress you do have to make. Because with all that noise, right? How are you supposed to pick up the song of what you're supposed to be doing? So you can see how the number of times that Ben gave her input, or the other parents were saying things to her, could just sort of all go under the same label of, and that's why everything still sucks for me, instead of a more practical or constructive label of, I can take that to heart now, I can put that into action immediately. Other approaches, those are outside of her ken.
Yeah, which it sucks. It's hard to read in a way because she is such just an open wound of a person. And like it was a heartbreaking chapter.
It's probably at its
Yeah.
worst. Like if we had been able to see her internal world at other points in the narrative, there's the possibility that like she might have had things a bit more together. But
she might have had some hope.
Like as far as being an open wound goes, she's right there talking to the knife.
Yeah,
like Mia is here. And this looming monster in her perceptions. So like she there's no wonder that she gets reduced to tears.
Yeah, and it's that moment of like, and she just starts crying as they're walking along, and she's at the back, and it's just kind of half glad that nobody is stopping to check on her, and half like miserable about it. It's like, fucking brutal. All right. Shall we start these beat by beats, our chronologicals?
For sure.
Okay. So, I mean, we're starting off with a pretty early quote from Natalie here of, "These people were monsters she imagined in the same way Sterling imagined them." And I'm like, this is such a fantastic, and like this beat just keeps on getting hit again and again and again in this chapter. And like Ben was doing it a lot as well. It's like the mytholization, which is obviously not a word, but of both Mia and Carson, like the way that they both see these two and like just other them. Like they hate the Hearsts so much, both of them, and they're just trying to fucking figure out what the fuck is wrong with these two people. And they almost can't ascribe like human like thoughts to like Mia and Carson. They have to other them. They have to say, no, these people aren't humans, they're monsters. Like they're the freaks.
Yeah.
Like I can't even imagine what's going through their heads at at any time, let alone, at this time. Yeah. And then that like follows on really nicely into the next next note here of talking about Mia and Carson being people willing to overlook the butchering of a child was surrounding them, and these two moved like fish in water, as if they'd been here before. "Have you been in this house before?" Natalie asked. And I'm like, I fucking love this. It's like she's so paranoid about like what level of collusion like Mia and Carson have to the Cavalcantis, and she's just panicking. Like she's so paranoid, and like she jumps from that like directly onto the next like fucking paragraph is like her saying, like after she talks, she's like, did they mess with my mask? Like, are they trying to kill me? She's just like completely panicking and just jumping between things, like, because she's so convinced that that the two of them are monsters.
Yeah.
So like any possible negative thing that they could do or could have ever done is so incredibly likely in her mind. Yeah.
I want to like pack into this space the official term mythologization, which is even more complicated than mytholization. But
well,
the way that Natalie is mythologizing and like constantly comparing Mia and Carson to like, sure, there's like the fish in water, but there's also the Carson is a panther comment. There's just this like a consistent attempt to as you said, to sort of make out their monstrosity to be something inhuman. But like that's also in contrast to this thought that Natalie has like rattling around in her head of like having tried at one point to imagine like that the person who stole her kid might have been unwell and might be somehow forgivable, and trying to bring that frame forward, and then finding them completely unflinching and unapologetic. And it's like, okay, so like they're the opposite. Like they've been the opposite of all that: intentional, unapologetic, unflinching. And if they're not the person that she was preparing for, this person that maybe as ill as ill in some way or another, but ultimately human and someone that she can establish empathy with, then they must be something else entirely. And she's just sort of scrambling for what that label could be.
Well, I think part of it is like, because we saw when she was talking to Ben and in the hospital and stuff, like the way that she talked about like how she feared what had happened to Camellia, being like, she's like convinced that, it's basically like how Tia grew up, like, people raising her to kill her or like to sexually abuse her or something like that, and seeing like she's just trying to like fit in this idea of like either they are like mentally ill people that made a mistake and they didn't know what they were doing, or they were like complete monsters that were like stealing my child to like assault her or kill her. And she's like having to like come to terms with the fact that it's like somewhere like in the middle. Like, you know, Mia knew what she was doing. She is very mentally ill. But like she knew what she was doing and she's not apologetic about it. But she did, you know, and has tried to raise Ripley with love. So like, yeah. And she's just trying to figure out where in that binary, you know, she should be treating like Mia. And obviously, as with most things, it's not actually a binary. Yeah. Anyway, go on. I interrupted you. Sorry. Go on.
Oh, no. That was pretty much the completed thought.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Right. So our third note here is, you know, Mia's talking about how like the last, you know, like 12 hours or so have been like hell for her. Or like 24 hours or however long it was. And Natalie is like, it was hell for you. Natalie felt contempt and hatred on a level she'd never known was possible. And it's like, these are just like non-stop beats of these two characters just refusing to empathize with each other. Like we saw it in Mia's chapters. We're seeing it in Natalie's chapter now. Like, yeah, Natalie, like, you know, it was hell for her. Like, you lived through something similar for 10 years. Like, you know, near the end of this chapter, you know, you talk about, like, Natalie talks about how the fact that after Camellia was taken, she like completely broke down. She couldn't live. Like, she couldn't like wash herself or anything. Like, that she was going through hell because her child was taken. And yet something similar has happened to Mia here. Her child was taken, and yes, it's hell for her. Like, yeah, Natalie, you also had a bad time. Okay, that sounds very dismissive. Yes, Natalie, the last like 24 hours since you've been like captured have been hell for you as well, obviously. Like, I would never, you know, dispute that. But like, yeah, just the way that these two just refuse to see eye to eye just so often. Like, they can't sit there and be like, yeah, actually, that would be hell.
I think
that's definitely something both of them do.
Yeah, it's something both of them do, and I think there's a component of the fact that one of them is doing it causes the other to sort of close ranks. Because if you were to extend out the empathy and then have your hand battered away, like suddenly your side of the story is the one that's not being heard. So the two of them getting into this place of just, well, like Mia is dismissing Natalie out of hand, so Natalie has to advocate for herself more and more, and that means that Natalie has less and less space for considering Mia, because Mia is considering Mia very loudly at Natalie's cost. It's just like salting for the wound, right? It's like there's no healing that can happen just through these two being exposed to each other.
Yeah. It's just I like to think of I like to think of things in terms of friction a lot of the time. And the way that, like, you know, if you push two things together and like rub them across, like, you are going to damage them. And like, that's just what's happening here. Like, these two have been pushed together and they're forcing to move in different ways and they're getting damaged, both of them. Yeah, poor things. Yeah. And then, okay. So then, Natalie's like considering Carson, and the internal monologue goes, he startled Natalie by turning his focus on Camellia. And I'm like, I love in this story where like we've had such an emphasis and such a focus on like the way that names are done and like the way that we think about names and the way that like our internal thoughts like change with names. But like Natalie, like just and up until this point, I mean, we haven't seen how her internal monologue before this, but the fact that it's basically always Camellia here, I really feel like she hasn't at any point tried, like, had the little voice in her head that says, oh, Camellia, and then gone, no, that's not right, it's Ripley. Like, it's just Camellia.
Yeah, and in her head, the name Ripley would be the conceding defeat to
it's a violence. It's a violence that Mia has imposed upon her, not upon Camellia, but on Natalie. Painful. I mean, it's
Ripley has been asking Natalie about the name for quite a while now, and
the whole time
there is something really quite odd in the way that Camelia's presence in like Natalie's mind is of this sort of speaking up creature, and something that really just moves in space. Like there's a lot of focus on like where presently she is, and there's not really a lot of talk of tone. And like there's this effect of their tone where everyone's in these hazmat suits, so like how much can you make out? Carson is very consistent, but like there's not really that same sort of speculation that Natalie puts forward onto Mia and onto Carson, where she's like, quite paranoid about what they're thinking internally. For what Ripley does in Natalie's perspective, it's where is Camelia's hand? Does Camelia like hold my hand or move away? Does Camelia need support? Is Camelia breathing? It's very visceral. So there's sort of like a lack of awareness of the internal world there, because of course the girl Camelia never got to grow up. Like Ripley exists in her place. So when in the lens of Camelia still existing, putting that in quotes, like the thing that becomes invisible about Ripley is what Ripley is thinking. And so we just have like this moving creature that occupies space and speaks up, but without tone or necessarily position.
Yeah, I mean, like it's like we talked about in Arc 4, I think, in the hospital, where like it is Natalie reducing Ripley to her object, and feeling like she's being betrayed by her object when it moves away from her. And that, like, it sucks. Like, that you can see that, like, that's still where her mind is with this kind of thing. Even if she's trying to not say it, or not do it as much, like, because we saw in Ripley's chapter, like, Natalie was doing really well, and, like, she was clearly trying to do the right thing and trying to walk her through it and everything. And now here, it's a lot more, just the way that she thinks about Ripley. No, not really. No, the way she thinks about Camelia. And just not at all considering the internality of Ripley's life. Oh, yeah. Anyway, So then we get when they're kind of like, I think this is when they're about to start walking. Still so calm. They were legitimate, actual psychopaths. No, Mia Hurst was trembling, eager anticipation, and I'm like, it's so interesting that like she's so convinced that Mia is 100% capital P pure, capital E evil that she can't even consider the fact that Mia might be horribly in pain or worried or having difficulty standing. Like eager anticipation? Like, no, what the hell? Like stress, worry, pain, all of those, yes. Not eager anticipation. I mean, Carson being very calm.
Legitimate, actual psychopaths as far as labels go. It's perhaps something that Carson might wear willingly.
Yeah, exactly. Which I mean, but yeah, obviously there's very the two of them are very different.
There's a lot of microcosms in this chapter, of just things that speak volumes. I have a whole spiel about the Sean scene for later.
Good.
And but we'll get there when we get there. For now,
yes.
Like the simple mentality of my first observation has concluded A. I have just witnessed B. How can I make B work with A? They're psychopaths. Yeah. No, wait. Mia is trembling. So how does that make her a psychopath? How can that make her? How can I make it work?
Yeah.
Which is how
then she must be excited to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pretty normal way for your brain to go. It's just that there's Natalie is so low filter and has so few resources to go around for deeper consideration that we just get these really bare, plain, the bias is maintained within sentences.
I mean, because right after this, she's like, oh, I can't tell what it is. She says, oh, eager anticipation, ? I can't tell. But, she doesn't consider any of the other options. She doesn't consider pain
she doesn't have the bandwidth.
Stress or fear. Yeah.
This is kind of close to the point where she has that whole line about Carson, a panther of a man exuding raw sex, easy confidence and competence.
Hell yeah.
It bothered her in a clenched fist in her lower belly kind of way that the kidnapper had that. Like Mia is the kidnapper. Like there's
Yeah.
no world where she's not leaving that territory behind. And Carson just neatly fits into a way for it to be personally insulting for Natalie. Not like a inside of like I think a very reasonable person might go, well, I even if I do perceive Carson as being out of Mia's league, then I'm probably just underestimating me. Like there must be something that Carson
Yeah.
sees that I don't.
And also like seeing this relationship and like being like, he's so hot and stuff, and like very attractive and very easy, comfortably confident and all that. And then thinking to herself, like the next step, oh, but he's a total freak. Even if he was interested in me, fuck no. Like, which would be a very normal, reaction to have, but it's the similar to how she's been thinking about Camellia. It's Carson as an object that's owned by Mia.
Yeah.
Rather than Carson as an object that could be owned by her. Yeah.
And there's this line, it was hard not to drown in the bitterness. It was hard not to choke on it. That her life had been taken from her to the degree it had. That she'd been changed as a person to someone this bitter, capable of feeling hate. And like that there isn't in when you are drowning in that state a place for a lot of the ways that Natalie is off the rhythm and like getting details wrong here. Like that I think is like the center of the chapter, that like because she is drowning in bitterness, this is what she sounds like. Because she's drowning in bitterness, she doesn't have room for thoughts about like if I really care about my daughter, then I will call her Ripley because she asked me to call her Ripley. Or if I am wondering about potential solutions to the situation, maybe Mia is someone that I can cooperate with, or I need to confirm whether or not that is the case, rather than projecting on this feeling more of this hostility in the world. But like you need a lot of space and breast to be able to have that sort of working. So we're talking earlier about Camellia being this as far as like her being an object that is of Natalie, something that moves in the world but is not a thinking being in Natalie's own mind, doesn't really hold opinion. There's this line that you've pulled of enough that if Camellia wasn't here watching, she'd feel tempted to tear Mia her mask off, let her suffocate on this air, even if it meant Carson attacking her, removing her mask. If she could watch that woman die painfully, she'd accept the same for herself if Camellia wasn't here. If Sterling, beautiful baby boy, wasn't waiting. So she choked back the hate. Like that sort of like the children as totems almost.
Yeah,
of just
exactly.
Like they're things. They don't like have opinions. Because I don't want to damage the totem, because I don't want my kids, my beautiful baby boy to have like the reason my life is valuable is because a beautiful baby boy is waiting for me. Like that. Like Sterling has an internal world and like values and will grow up to have potential and his potential realized. All of that is just packed into he is a beautiful baby boy and he as a static object is waiting for me and I must return to that totem. So that is where she is able to derive like her ability to preserve herself and not take incredible risk. And so in turn, Camelia's mere presence, like the idea that her daughter is present and like not necessarily with anything besides eyes that see, is what stops her from attacking me. It's not a matter of any like greater interrogation of what Mia is. It's just the totem of she has her child here means that certain actions are unacceptable. It's just really interesting how like these old like they had sort of axiomatic function of like I may not be in the state to like actively mother and engage with the facts of reality, but I can know intellectually that my daughter is here and therefore I shouldn't violently murder anyone. Like it's very like in the state of that like mire of bitterness, reaching just for the plain and simple truths to be able to function from.
Yeah. God. Oh, Natalie. Oh, Natalie. And I mean, like, here as well, like I really like how last arc we saw like Carson being very ready to die for his wife and children. With the ambush where he takes the risks. He says, "Yeah, I might die, but it'll help. Like this will help Mia get to." And then we contrast this to here, where Natalie is ready just to die for nothing, just revenge and bitterness, and it's heartbreaking again. It's just fucking. And speaking of heartbreaking, the second part of the quote, after she says, if Camellia wasn't here, I'd kill her. Then next paragraph, if Camellia wasn't here. Next paragraph, if Sterling, beautiful boy, wasn't waiting for her. And it just it's fucking painful as usual. Like he's 2 paragraphs after Natalie mentions not wanting to do it in front of Camellia. Like that's the first time Sterling gets mentioned here. Like he's such an afterthought in every time, every way. It hurts. Like it's really
it is odd that like we had that Carson quote earlier, that he called her love so easily, and the best Natalie had was being turned down by Ben. Second thought, a mug made by Sterling, closing out the whole paragraph. It's
exactly
like it's that misery of comparison, yes, but
it is
the place of Sterling in her world, like he
it's secondary.
It's secondary, and also his love is being comparative, right?
Yeah.
So this eventually will lead into this accusation to Natalie.
Yeah, exactly.
Of how well she's been doing as a mother to Sterling.
And she says you can't use that against me, yada yada. But we do in her internal monologue, we've been seeing that Sterling is still second, always.
And
always.
The thing is, I don't think it's entirely unfair to which would you rather, a mug made by a kid or a sexy husband who loves you very much? If you do put those on a scale, you have a bad time. But you shouldn't be weighing up those possibilities. Those things aren't meant to be compared. But and by putting them on scales, all you really succeeded in doing is lessening what you have.
And I mean, you could easily make the argument as well that actually a lot of people would prefer, a mug, which it's a mug, but it's a symbol of love from your child, a symbol of love and appreciation from your child. That sounds lovely. That sounds like exactly the kind of thing that Natalie needs. But Natalie doesn't need it from Sterling. Natalie needs it from Camellia. Who Ripley isn't giving it. So,
and it's such a shame because if Natalie were a tea drinker, she would really appreciate that mug a lot more, and she would recognize the tragedy of Ripley having lost an arm and no longer being able to do ceramics. How are you supposed to throw a pot if you don't have 2 hands? I'd be very impressed to find out. But maybe the 2 of them can do pottery together. I volunteer. I literally lend a hand.
As soon as you said it's such a shame, I knew something was coming. I wasn't sure what it was going to be, but I knew it was coming.
It's what can I say? I just think that Natalie needs to look for the ceramics-based manners by which she could mend her relationship with her kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Here's another moment that I love, where Natalie's trying to stay behind and usher the children forward. There was a moment of confusion because Mia was also trying to guide them and let them by, and there were too many of them to squeeze. The look she shot Natalie was cold. I'm like, yeah, Natalie, fuck you. How dare you try and care about children? That's Mia's job. What's wrong with you, you freak? It's just such a perfect moment of Natalie and Mia just refusing to, again, refusing to see eye to eye. And previously, it was Natalie doing it. Here it's blatantly 100% Mia. Girl, Natalie is doing a good thing here. Let her go at the back. It's fine. It's just so, I just enjoy every beat of this where they just refuse to see eye to eye. They refuse to empathize with each other.
Or rather, it's just the more straightforward achievement of cooperation. This is a full disaster that they're in. They are in life-threatening peril, and still Natalie is going, I'm not gonna carry the jugs, and Mia is going, how dare you wait by a door for half a second. The audacity.
How dare you wait at the back? I want to be the one waiting at the back. Yeah. They're very silly.
It's this.
Yeah.
Like, there's that notion that the most absurd comedy happens when like death is on the line, like
Yeah.
greatest jokes are said at a funeral, that sort of thing. And like this basically like high school, like, well, I want this part of the group project.
Yeah. Yeah. It
in,
is.
in this life-threatening situation is really funny, and it's you can get a real whiplash if you're reading it at just the right pace.
Yeah,
you can imagine it being filmed with like if the music cut out for like just half a second, so that they could just kind of shuffle back and forth and then enter back.
And you get some nice close up look at their eyes as they're like staring at each other for a moment as they're shuffling around.
Yeah, this could be really laugh out loud.
Yeah. So then we go from this very funny moment to talking about like at the end of the hall there's like a teenage girl's room, a bathroom, and a closed door, and then like the door opens and Natalie decides to skedaddle. And I'm like, wait, this is Valentina's brother's room, right? Yeah. Like clearly you pulled that for our for the intro. Like, yeah, like they left him behind. That's fucked. Like no way he was getting out of this house by under his own power. Oof. I guess rest in peace, buddy. Thanks for getting Mia and Carson down to the basement. You did good. I hope you didn't have such a horrible time choking to death on mustard gas. Woo. Oh, brutal. And then they leave the house and they're they see the two goons outside and live and let live, Carson said. And I'm like, I love this. Like obviously this is like a kind of a beat we've had a couple of times of like how much you can trust the people like working under you. And I'm like, yeah, like when you don't have people working for an actual ideal, like when you don't have people working for a cause, they're not going to be as loyal. Like Davy's flaw here is the same one that Mia and Carson were having earlier with a bunch of their mercenaries. Like when you have people that are just mercenaries that don't trust you, that don't believe in what you're doing, they're not going to put their lives on the line. They're going to say live and let live and turn the other way.
It's a very good parallel to be drawing. Especially because comparatively with like, for example, Valentina's brother, the thing that has breached Davy's operation is a degree of care and like community. Like,
yeah,
there was no way in the world that Danny was going to support his father. And certainly, once he knew that these were the people that had helped his sister escape, like he was on board for assisting them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like,
yeah,
like if that's the state of Davy Cavalcanti's son, then the state of his troopers is not going to be is going to be even worse than the state that Max and Bolden were in, where they at least could try having a discussion first. Or at least Max was willing to, and Bolden had to save him.
Bolden was smarter about it, yeah.
But I want to take a moment just to wonder after Danny, because
he's dead. Surely.
Like I assume that when like the purpose of the door opening is not that Danny has just escaped just now, but that someone has just checked to see if Danny has died.
I assumed it was Danny like shuffling his way out of his room because he can barely move.
So ice cold of Mia just to shake her head.
Yeah.
But
to be fair, they don't have another like gas mask and like
suit. There's not a lot, but also that she can do. Even then, I do wonder if we're just never gonna get to know. And like maybe. As far as like the coal that these guys are making, and like you can see them maybe going either way, right? Because they've got the appeal is this operation is falling apart. You don't need to put your lives on the line for this. So what proof do they have the operation is falling apart? There's mustard gas coming out from the basement. The building is on fire. Like there's plenty of reason. But as far as tipping them over goes, Davy's treatment of his own son in a community that's based on filial piety, basically, is like a part of how I interpret them actually withdrawing and letting them pass is that they know that something has gone, like that Danny has died or something similar.
The fact that like Danny was so completely almost dead already, and like they would have been able to see that he wasn't outside. Like, yeah, he would certainly cut a figure at the moment. Yeah, like, oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so in our notes, we've made it out of the house finally. uh,
Hey, listen, it's a long way out of a burning building.
It is, yeah, yeah. Ripley calls Carson dad, and Natalie closed her eyes. So this is after Carson jokes about, like, oh, Natalie, you could take off your suit and we'll use that as a top. Ha 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 ha. And Ripley says something like, that's not funny, dad. And so Natalie closed her eyes, sweat stung, dad. And I'm like, Natalie is just walking across broken glass with every interaction between the three of these, like, characters. Like, the dad thing hurts so much more than the implicit threat of, yeah, just take off your, like, suit and hold your breath, and you'll die. Get fucked. Yeah, it's just, it's brutal. Like, it's just, again, it's heartbreaking. Like, it's hard to be in Natalie's head because she is so wounded by everything that is happening. Yeah. Then my next note.
You really put it in the best possible terms. If do you care to read this out verbatim?
I guess I will. I guess I will read it out verbatim. Brian fell. -1 kid, +1 dead weight.
Emphasis on the dead, possibly.
Emphasis. Well, I think is still alive throughout this chapter. We'll see how that goes in the future. Yeah. I mean, fucked. Obviously fucked.
No, my BS prediction. No. That's definitely the priority over a child being shot in warfare.
Yeah.
I remember when I read this, like, fully, like, gasping out loud, because
it's genuinely shocking.
It's not exactly a shark jump.
No.
But in terms of, like, what it means for everything that follows, it's really huge.
Yeah.
Like, where a shark jump would be like, okay, all bets are off, and like, there's no way to top this. Things are just, there's no rules anymore. This is
that would have been if Ripley got shot.
Yeah, this is like, in terms of, like, what is now possible in the narrative, like the degree of monstrosity. We already had a kid being maimed. Now we have a children being shot in the middle, like, with absolutely no chance of medical care, and, like, known to the shooter. And, like, as the implications for Davy's operation is huge, because this is his hostage to get the mayor to cooperate. If his son dies in the line of fire, then the mayor's not going to fucking cooperate.
God, no.
So, Shark Jump has this sort of essence of, like, I've lost faith in the story. That's not what this is. If you jump a shark and the shark bites you, and you get pulled down into the water and ripped to shreds, the vigorous assertion that the reality can still get worse, that actually the envelope has not been pushed far enough, and things there are things that can still happen that are even worse than you considered. There is no tone armor. There is no plot armor. It is. I mean, it's very powerful. It's certainly unexpected. I really do hope that this kid survives.
Yeah, me too. I don't think it'll happen, but I hope so. It would be nice. Yeah. And we get into our next quote, which is, Mia and Carson talking. My love, my wife, he shot a child, Mia snarled. I'm like, these two are everything. Like, I love these two. I love the way that Carson talks, when he's talking to Mia. Like, my love, my wife, like, just trying to ground her and bring her back. And she is just, like, full on, like feral mode, basically, like, ready to rip this dude in half.
There's his demon.
Yeah, and we love it. I love it.
So we have this quote here. I'll read now. I want to hear your thoughts on this, because as far as Natalie, like, surfing on this tide of bitterness goes, and like, experiencing Ripley as Camellia as a sort of totem of respectability, perhaps would be the word. This is sort of all of that at once. what Mia was saying, which is to say that he shot a child, the snarling, this protectiveness.
No, this is sorry, this is slightly afterwards. This is Mia talking about the brain damage.
She's talking about the full picture of like how she's able to pick up Brian right now under these conditions, and like what's going on in her head, and it is what Natalie had been wondering after what if the person who took my child is sick and forgivable? What Mia was saying deserved a response, a retort, but Camelia's hand on her wrist was tight, and she could remember that part of herself that had wondered where the line was for forgiveness. She didn't think it was here. No fucking way was it here.
And, like, yeah, I mean, you know, she's right. It's not here. Yeah, absolutely it's not here. But, like, yeah, this could be the first step, you know? Like, the first time that they look eye to eye and actually consider what life might have been like for the other one. Yeah, I like this moment. I like that, yeah, even, like, Camellia as the totem here is, like, helping to ground her a little more, helping to pull a single breath up from that, from drowning in that ocean of bitterness. Like, I do appreciate that. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you know, I hope she gets. Yeah. Also, I do love how, like, her immediate like thought to this is like, oh, this deserves a response, and then she, like, immediately is like, not a response, a retort. Like, I have to prove her wrong. I have to prove that it doesn't matter that she was, like, brain damaged. That's why this happened. Like, she's still evil. I have to prove to her that she's still evil, even if, you know, she has a reason. And it's like, no, you don't. Like,
and I appreciate really, really two things about this, about what Mia has said here, and how Natalie follows it up. The first thing is that Mia says, I spend every day quietly terrified. For Ripley, for Tyr, for Sterling, for Brian here constantly. Which is pretty true to Natalie's experience.
Yeah, like, that's, yeah, they're the same.
Like,
yeah.
that is probably how Natalie would put it in her own experience of the bitterness and paranoia. But this like question of what Mia was saying deserved a retort is broken up by Natalie was busy trying to breathe and was bewildered. Mia was able to string that many words together, considered everything. And then there's this visceral description of, like, where the air goes, what happens to the mask, like, her state of her mouth, the state of her skin and hair. And it's like the initial moment of Mia saying something that, like, as far as empathy goes, it's sympathy, right? It's one-to-one. These two ought to have immediate understanding of these two experiences.
Yeah.
The separating thought is that Natalie was busy trying to breathe. Like, there's no space for the recognition of that similarity, and in trying to gather that strength together, like, Natalie finds herself back at that moment of wanting to retort, thinking that she's being argued with ultimately.
Yeah. Which, yeah, sucks. I mean, you know, it does suck. Like, the way that these two just return to each other's throats, which obviously Mia almost does later on in chapter a little bit. Literally, yeah. I don't know. It's these poor girls. Yeah. So then we get into this argument, and, you know, one of the lines here is, Ripley calls you fuck. I'm going to try that one again. And I also am not going to edit that out. So hello everyone. Ripley calls you mum. She has a name you gave her. She dresses how you, and I'm like, I hate this. I love this. I hate this. I was like, every moment that Natalie is putting a wedge between between Mia and Ripley, she follows up with a wedge between herself and Ripley. Like, because in the previous paragraph, like, she was, you know, spitting fire basically, and was really, like, pushing that wedge in between Mia and Ripley. And then she follows it up, and she immediately is Ripley. Like, she can't get through, like, an argument without kind of dismissing Ripley and dismissing her life. Like, she has a name you gave her. She dresses how you want her to, like, ignoring the fact that Ripley likes the way that she dresses. She likes her name. She hates the name Camellia. She genuinely finds joy in her name, and she genuinely finds joy in her clothing.
Yeah.
And
so this sort of point is so moot. Especially because
it's just bitterness.
Mia's
There's no
Mia gets to reserve this hard counter of well, all I have done is in Ripley's choices, and Ripley chose these things.
Yeah.
So if she hadn't been if I hadn't like the in brackets like quiet part that she can never quite like fully acknowledge is the crimes, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when Natalie gets up to speed, it's like chewing into a pretty prominent like weakness in Mia's mentality, which is, you know, she says being stronger, research, money, and Natalie puts it correctly as crime.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, this whole argument felt like just reading the comment sections of people sort of shadowboxing out what this would look like.
Yeah.
Any given week, like someone taking Mia's side, someone taking Natalie's, it would be, hey, have we considered that Mia is a criminal and that can't be okay? And then Mia having a host of justifications for like all of them not quite engaging with the fact that as far as crimes go, as far as enabling people to do crimes, as far as getting people second chances, she has committed a crime that doesn't really operate that way. But like is not as Natalie says, is not a binary. Is not like you could steal my child or leave it to die. Like it's like that.
Exactly.
The way Mia sees it is not how it is. But this sort of storm.
But also, the way Natalie sees it is not how it is.
Well, that's true. It's like this sort of really rough gear crashing of neither is shaped exactly correctly.
Yes,
and I love I just love Ripley in this because as far as
it hurts.
Like Camellia squeezed her wrist again.
So good.
Like the place where Ripley is single words or don't swear at each other or just squeezing hands or placing her hand. She just gets to demonstrate where she is on someone's argument. And I love that.
And crying a lot.
Because who wouldn't?
Yeah.
I love that at the very beginning. There's these sort of blank moments where Camellia squeezed her wrist again. Like when Natalie's asking about the criminal record and like what Mia and Carson have done as work, and the simple part of it is that Ripley has not been part of that conversation yet, and this is something that she does want to hear. But in Natalie's world, as she's making this argument that I think Ripley would hear, and if she wanted to get on like Ripley on her side, she should like really dig into and try and follow up on. Ripley's only input is that the only thing that Natalie can register is her hand being squeezed, her wrist being squeezed by Ripley. Or the opinion or like the decidedness or like where that argument is going doesn't really register for her. She's too in the moment of rage and injustice to go, well, my actual priority is my kid and I want to see what my kid thinks.
No, exactly,
And, you know, you could also read it as Ripley is squeezing her wrist because, hey, don't say that. These are dangerous people. Or, hey, I disagree. We don't get to know.
Yeah, it's impossible to know because she doesn't. Yeah,
there's no insight.
Natalie doesn't consider her input.
Doesn't take the time to consider.
Notes the physical. Yeah, she notes the physical interaction and leaves it.
But still, so we get these sort of like shadows cast of trying to remind us, like, hey, what does Ripley think of all this? And eventually the conversation sort of devolves into pot shots and attacks, and that's when Ripley pretty fully disengages and is asking everyone to calm down. But in this early on, when they're actually talking it over, and, you know, like Natalie is getting these questions about when was Ripley going to get to know about this? Like, is this work really at all it's cracked up to be? Aren't you enabling criminals? Like, are you putting more evil into the world than you are good? Like, how is this affecting the way that you're raising your kid? All really important questions that quickly sort of disappear into pathos, you know, like, and people just sort of start insulting each other. And I think if Natalie had just a bit more time to be aware of Ripley in this, or if Ripley had the breadth and her own like space of mind to pitch in, there might have been an opportunity for Ripley to go, yeah, what about that? What more are you going to tell me? How many, can I review these records about these criminals? Because I don't think I do approve even a little bit. My standards is actually going to be quite high. I'm not going to accept a guy that murdered someone and now feels bad about it. I want something more thorough than just a criminal that regrets. And it's the difference between the lion's share of Mia's work being unacceptable to Ripley and all but a few being dicey. And we don't get to follow that thread because people, things just sort of devolve into attacks, and that's the way that Natalie shapes these questions. She's going that's convenient for you, barking out a laugh. It
is a great line.
And it is convenient for her. Natalie is actually come to a point here, that everyone's so antagonistic to each other that it prevents the discussion that would have maybe given voice to Ripley's internal logic right now, and see where she's at on this topic, and because ultimately it's a question of convincing Ripley. Because it would be great if Natalie and Mia could see eye to eye. It would be great if they could both heal separately and together. But they're fighting for custody ultimately. And the fact that the two of them are too busy attacking each other to really key in on where Ripley is in all of this, I think is the ultimate failure in this discussion.
And also Ripley goes to Mia after this discussion. She gives Natalie a sad little half smile, not quite smile thing. It's just kind of brutal, and the way they're just completely talking past each other. They're just saying fuck you, you're a criminal. Fuck you, your idiot journalist tipped off the Cavalcantis. They're just snipping back and forth at each other, and they're not internalizing, they're not saying, oh shit. Or the way that Natalie says, you made so many people's lives worse. You made so many people and so many children afraid. And they just can't respond to each other. They can't internalize these things very well. And sit down and be oh shit, I did. I made people's lives hell.
Well, yeah.
Or, shit, I trusted Ben and he fucked us.
Yeah. We know at least that Mia has been having this growing crisis of faith about the involvement of children in this, and it explains a lot of her reaction to Brian. And it's put in context of kids being put in danger with the Civil Warriors raid, and the way that she's been considering over that. At no point in this conversation is there room for anyone to say, actually, yeah, I did fuck up there. In no world do these everything from correct criticism to personal attack, and the slim difference between them, which is eventually just how you deliver it. There is no world where that comes to anything, because neither is going to. It's not really a both sidesism, because I would ultimately say that Mia isn't a lot more wrong than Natalie is. Which sort of the hell of being in her perspective here, because she's being ganged up on, and when Carson says we should go, and is repeatedly going, hey, life-threatening situation here, let's get out of here. It feels very dogpilingly, because Natalie is it's essentially Natalie versus Carson, Mia, and Ripley, where the only person on Natalie's side is this sort of ghost of Camellia that she can interpret from Ripley's actions.
Oof. And then I guess that flows pretty well into the next quote I have here, actually, of it's not fair, Natalie said, words choked, that you get to break me, take my joy, take my hope, my love, do the amount of harm you've done, then use that struggle to say I don't get to have her back, that I have hate in my heart that you put there, that I've struggled because you put that struggle into my life. You can't tear my heart out, then blame me for wanting it back so badly I lose track of. And I'm fucking hell. It just hurts. Yes, it's absolutely heartbreaking. She's 100% right here that these, I was going to say these two, but it wasn't those two. It was Mia. Mia fucking destroyed her life.
She wouldn't be here.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, no, Natalie, it is kind of on you still that you lost track of 4 years of Sterling's life, basically, that you barely think of him, that he is that sterling silver, that second place. always. Like there's no excuse for that. You know, there's reasons for it, but there's no excuse for it. Yeah, it sucks. The whole thing sucks. Yeah.
I was really like, it's sort of this ultimate fallacy of the conversation, in my mind. You have this note here of she's treating Ripley as an object even now. Like Ripley is my heart, which has been ripped away and like taken like all the Natalie has what I think is a really reasonable fixation in the I don't think there's many parents out there that would disagree.
No, I don't. Yeah.
And you know,
it'd be a hard argument to make.
If this were like Taken or another like big movie, Natalie would be the hero, like outright, and it wouldn't be a question. And there's this sort of I think the most valuable thing to get out of seeing Natalie in this absolutely horrible space where her true experience is that her heart has been ripped out of her body, is that harm is still being done, not just to her as the world continues to re-inflict that damage, like not returning her daughter to her, which is but also the fact that standard is impossible, that like Ripley is now another human being. It's not possible for her to just become Camellia. But furthermore, that there would be Sterling in all this, and furthermore that Sterling would be turned into an object as sort of a bar setter for Natalie's own behavior. Like there is injustice and pain in every step of that. And I think there's something uniquely horrible about the very reasonable argument. Like by reasonable, I mean logical, rather than perhaps kind or worthwhile. Of Sterling is this challenge to Natalie, her second chance. Like the question of if you deserve to have your kid back, which is not something that anyone should ever be put into as a situation, then you ought to be able to raise Sterling right, and demonstrate that you've learned from your mistakes. Accepting the fact that if you put Natalie in the context of her history, which we then very, very sweetly get to have,
sweetly, yeah, that's a word.
Sweet in the sort of, I guess I mean that in terms of like the creative writer in me. Like it's narratively satisfying at the same time. It's soulfully heartbreaking. But it just goes to show how undeserving any person could be of that kind of line of criticism. Because the fact of the matter is, yes, Natalie is not doing all that she could, hypothetically, for Sterling. But the last people that get to judge her for that are the people that put her in that situation. Because in order to grow from this place of agony, she has to like be able to heal from it. And she's not accepting the injustice that has been put onto her. And she is seeking to reclaim what has been taken from her. And that's not really wrong, you know? I think that the model of grief as like you have your bargaining and rage and depression to try and find acceptance and be able to move on is this weird, it has a very weird connection to situations like this where you would be perfectly forgiven for never accepting what has happened to you because it's not fair.
No, yeah, absolutely.
But
like at the same time, like you have to live on. And especially if you choose to then put someone else under your care is not quite the right. But like if you then choose to provide for someone else, to become someone else's everything, like you have an obligation to not let that first pain and heartbreak destroy their life as well.
And perhaps the worst part about this is that it's Ripley that finds this argument convincing.
It's Ripley that makes the argument.
Well,
you know, because Mia says out of respect for Ripley, like I'm not gonna, I won't say anything.
And then like it's Ripley that broaches the topic. The tragic thing here is that Ripley broaches this topic even when Mia volunteers the opportunity not to. On her level, as she experiences Natalie. Natalie not being ready or not being able to raise a kid right now and not being in that place is convincing to her. And I like that because as we just like as the community at large, as we discuss it, there's an Ouroboros here of Mia caused the harm that has left Natalie in this position, and Mia is judging Natalie by the state that she is in. So either Mia is to blame or Natalie needs to step up. And there's a world where you just sort of even those out to either extreme, or find a balance in between. But for Ripley, as a person in the world with this argument going on in her head and in front of her, the convincing thing is, I don't believe that you, Natalie, are ready to look after me. And I know that from Sterling, who I've already told you need to shape up for.
Yeah. Which it's very practical. And it's heartbreaking. I don't know. There's only so many times I can call this book heartbreaking, but it's accurate.
The state
still.
of Kippos is hard at this point.
It's fucked.
I mean, it's how does it feel to have glass shards just bouncing around your chest? Like probably the same way it is for Natalie.
Yeah, pretty similar, I reckon.
And
me and Natalie are similar in that we've both had serious depression for over a decade.
I really do hope that you find the kid that was kidnapped from that car in the Australian Apple.
Oh, one of these days.
I believe
one of these days,
and
then I'll get my life back.
I've got a contact from some guy called Ben. If you want to work with him to find.
No, I don't want to work with him. I'm good, actually.
So let's move on.
Let her live her life out there.
Let's move on from that particular hell to a whole other genre of hell, because we get the flashback.
Yeah, a whole new hell. Yay. The multiple flashbacks. Kiss, kiss, the aunt said. Natalie went for a cheek kiss. Her aunt, holding her, maneuvered her instead for a lip-on-lip smooch. And I'm like, I don't know how much I'm going to pull out from this section, but I just want to say this is fucking horrible.
Yeah. It's an assault on the senses.
It's such an assault on the senses. And even before the two cousins that bully her later, it's so way too much. And it's just so many people ignoring her boundaries, ignoring her agency, ironically, as she then continues to do. It's miserable. So then my next quote here is, "I'm easy," Uncle L said. He smelled like beer. His arms were wrapped around her ribs. "How are you?" And I'm like, ugh. Just let the child go. If the child does not want to be touched, do not touch the fucking child. And then her aunt being like, "Oh, she's 6, isn't she?" And she's like, "Oh no, she's 8. Oh, you've got to tell me your secret, darling. How do you keep this slim, tiny figure?" And I'm like, if I ever see someone say this to an 8-year-old, I will end their fucking life.
It's
it
really explains.
You should not say that to anyone.
It really explains how
Jesus Christ,
Natalie can be perceiving children as objects. Because when she was this size, that was how everyone treated her. And I don't think that she's ever going to really move out of that headspace, because it's such an attack in this version. Yeah. And it's just as controlling to provide that defense and sort of helicopter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we get "Oh, you looked so pretty when you came in the door. Let's fix that." "Oh, it's fine," she protested. "It's really not. Have you looked in a mirror?" And I'm like, she's 8. She's 8. Ah! I don't know. I hate it. I hate it so much. She's 8 years old. Let kids, not care about their fucking appearance. Us adults all fucking worry about our appearance 24/7. Let kids just live their fucking lives at least. And then maybe they will grow into adults that don't hate their appearance as much.
Let her go. She's not feeling well. If she gives me a kiss.
Ugh. I feel genuinely sick. I hate it. I hate it. It's so gross. It runs so roughshod over any concept of personal boundaries, any concept of agency. It's, this child is a pretty object which I have brought to this function to be admired.
Well, and even the parents are just going please don't. But the extended family,
very softly,
just ignoring
"Oh, please don't."
If there was ever a time to intervene to defend your child, it would be. But family is hard. I think the thing that I saw most often in comments around this was describing this sort of experience and how violating it can be, and how it sits in your
Mhm.
head years after as like really violent, is
Mhm.
really difficult to articulate. But we just get
Yeah.
Natalie sent like a ball through an arcade machine. You know, it's just like ping
Yeah.
ponging every which way in utter pain from every bounce. And
Yeah.
um,
And everyone just like not even ignoring her boundaries, but not even considering the fact that she might have boundaries.
well, yeah,
you know,
and like interpreting
yeah,
her resistance as something that should be ignored.
yeah,
Like, oh, you play along. If she gives me a kiss, like it's
yeah,
like you should learn to satisfy my needs. Stop it with
yeah, exactly.
this childish requirement of your own.
Yeah,
Hmm.
genuinely, like this section was hard to read both times I read it. Because it's so wrong. It feels so wrong at every point.
I
hate
really,
it.
as far as like getting on from this section, I really enjoy the parallel you've drawn
Please.
here with the cousins.
Oh yeah, yeah. When they come into the bedroom after the fact, she's laying there, and it was scary. They scared her because they didn't flinch or react or care. And I'm like, I love that this is such a great mapping of the cousins onto Mia and Carson, as these people that are unflinching, weirdly calm. You know, they don't like flinch. They don't stop to consider what they're doing. You know, like they don't seem to care. They're just doing what they are doing. And that makes them scary. Yeah. I think you wanted to talk about some stuff from this section. So please go on.
I really want to take a bit just to unpack the microcosm that is her interactions with Sean, because ultimately this is a really important moment, because if she's pregnant enough to have a lot of trouble moving, I feel it's fair to speculate that this is quite close to when she actually had Ripley.
I was assuming like 9-ish months, yeah.
And there's this moment here of, "You need anything," he mumbled. She worked her pregnant way to her pregnancy swollen feet, took in a breath, then managed to tell him no, but he was already asleep again. So, as far as her relationship with Sean, which we have not really gotten to see, besides the fact that, you know, that really, really sad moment of her tagging and "I love you" frantically at the end of a phone call, and like him not at all helping with Ripley after she was born, and you know, in any criticism of Natalie leaving her baby in the car, I think we really ought to point out that it was Sean was also there, and Sean also wasn't postnatal. You know, like had probably a lot more sense of presence of mind and like a lot less complete agony to provide. So we have this framing device of Natalie being reduced to tears again because some pop psychology on TV has accused her of still being a child. And she's coping with that idea and pulling it through her head, and her first thought for what it means to be a kid, as we've just seen, is people like handling her and ignoring her space and being dependent on them and also overwhelmed by them and crowded by them. So it makes sense that she would tell Sean, "No, I don't want help," because she doesn't want help, but she does need help because she's pregnant. And like you're not supposed to have to like go through the busy work of building a baby in your own body where like your teeth will start shattering and your skin distends and like everything gets swollen and it's awful. You're not supposed to do that alone because you're busy. You're doing a hard job.
Yes.
But Sean is really fulfilling, like as far as partners go, something that Natalie has previously wanted, right? Which is to be left alone.
Which is space.
She has every reason to want space, but so Sean is satisfying, is providing a sort of love that resembles what Natalie thinks that she wants, which is that instead of crowding her, he is neglecting her, which has the side effect of giving her space. So he has this moment of asking, which is great because no one in Natalie's family asked, "Do you need anything?" And then Natalie very reasonably, from her internal logic, goes about doing things independently, because that's what it means to be an adult. That is
Yeah.
that is the sign that she is still in control, that she's not being overwhelmed, and she puts in a huge amount of effort when she should not have to, before finally being able to say, no, I don't need help. I don't want help, I don't need help. She's wrong about that. She deserves help. But she says no
Yes.
after she's done all that work, and Sean falls asleep.
Yeah. Not even falls asleep. Like, he has fallen asleep by that point. Like,
and
doesn't even wait for her to answer.
Doesn't even wait for her to answer. Doesn't like open his eyes to go, Natalie, who is probably 8 or 9 months pregnant, is trying to stand something that is functionally impossible. Not something that you are supposed to do, or supposed to have to do even. Because humans, like when we're born, the only thing we can do is ask for help, right? Like that's like we're not like other animals that just get born with the ability to walk and ability to talk. All we do is wail, because that's all we need if we're in community. People will look after you. They'll teach you all the important stuff. It's a natural thing for humans to have community to assist you. So Natalie has grown up in a family that can't provide that community and has done everything to overwhelm and ignore her needs. So she doesn't think they'll be met. She selects Sean because she thinks that he will give her what she wants, which is to be left alone. And as a result, she is left in this place where she has to spend all of her energy to do things on her own. And then, there's this question of just how the hell was she meant to do this? It's not even a question, it's a full stop.
Yeah.
Because it's rhetorical. She's not supposed to. This is really not how things are supposed to work. And she's fermenting this huge anger at Sean that she is choosing in her own mentality. She's describing herself as like childish and wrong to put that anger towards him, even though it is righteous and correct. So of course she this is the anger that leads to that. I think the final number was half an hour, 40 minutes of yelling at Sean that leads Ripley to be kidnapped. Yeah. And Sean being in this situation is so much to do with Natalie being in the condition that her family has put her in. You can see the path in just this scene. And the ultimate oath, the thing that Natalie has placed her humanity on in that moment is, I'll protect you from harm, because people have harmed me and no one protected me and no one helped me, so I will do that for you. So this sort of neat translation of a parent that is neglectful into a parent that is helicoptering and crowding. And in just a few steps and a few flashbacks, we see how Natalie, she's not perpetuating the pain that has been delivered on her by her family. It's not like trauma has made her into a loop or a broken record. It's her own personal consideration of reacting to the real challenges and obstacles in front of her to try and get things to change and be better, and then receiving no help. As far as not moving on goes, as far as this, she's wondering, she's putting it on herself as guilt of, am I a child? Is this pop psychology correct and I'm broken somehow? The real thing that is missing from Natalie's equation is that she is alone, and that she's being neglected, and that no one is there to help her. So when she tries to be that help for someone else, in this case her daughter, it is hugely important for her, massively stressful, and she has basically none of the skills. And I can't hold that against her. There really is nothing to hold against her. It's a very straightforward moving from one edge of neglect to crowding, from one end to the other, just between wants and needs, because her needs have never been met. She's never had a community that can simultaneously leave her alone when she wants to be left alone and support her when she needs support. So I truly think that if Natalie gets the support that she needs, she will be out of this situation. In the meantime, she is blaming her lack of independence on herself and trying to become more independent, which in turn means that she needs more support. In the same way that spending all of your energy walking to the bathroom unaided would when you're fully pregnant.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. Shall I move on to my next note?
We are almost
Or
there.
is it... We are almost there. Okay, here we are. Camellia leaned on Mia Hurst instead. The arm that Natalie would reach for was gone. And I'm like, I love this. Like, this is such a good of like, yeah, like Ripley might want to be with them both. Like, she might want that split custody. She wants to hold both of their hands, but she can't. She has to make a choice. And she has to, when she makes that choice, she has to leave nothing for the other one to hold on to. I thought this was really, I really like this moment of symbolism. It's heartbreaking. Again, obviously it's heartbreaking. But it's really fucking, yeah. And then our final line for the chapter is, as you pointed out in the, I'll protect you from the monsters. What a great ending. As we move into whatever could happen in the next chapter. Whoa.
She has resolved.
Whatever mystery that's going to be.
Even if she can't be a mama, she is going to be a mama bear. She will protect her daughter.
Yeah. She'll do her best.
And yeah, I can only hope.
We only hope it goes well next chapter. The contents of which is a mystery to all of us.
Oh yes, of course. What could possibly happen?
We've been very diligent with making sure that we updo our episodes very early and in good time and everything. And and we're not at all a week behind.
And in full transparency, both of us have been unwell. So I think us being behind is acceptable. We'll just see if we can get
doing our best
up to it. Lickety split. BS predictions?
Yes, BS predictions. So, moving on from my commentary on holding the arms and having to choose one of them, my BS prediction for this week is that Mia is going to upload her consciousness into the cloud at the same time that Ripley gets a machine arm so that she can, in fact, metaphorically hold both of her mum's hands at the same time.
Fantastic.
Thank you. It really neatly puts a bow on the whole thing. I think it's going to happen.
And I think it's going to be the chapter after next. Haven't read 6.5 yet.
Me either. Yeah, but that's what happens in 6.5.
Well, yeah, because they worked.
And then everyone's going to be like, "Wow!"
Oh no, spoilers.
Yeah. Then people are going to be like, "Wow, Kip, you clearly did read 6.5. Why are you lying?" No, I didn't, guys. I just know what's going to happen in it. Okay, it's called picking up narrative threads.
Yeah, we're just reading the foreshadowing, okay, or 5 shadowing because there's 5 fingers on a hand.
Hell yeah.
My BS prediction, please. I think, is a bit more out there. But I'm seeing the cues. Sean realizing that he has a lot more fault in this than Natalie, to a significant extent, will suggest that he and Natalie have a third kid, which will solve everything.
Yeah. So that's saying if you're in a relationship that's not working, you have a kid, and that'll fix it. And if that doesn't fix it, then you have another one.
I think they should.
And if that doesn't fix it, third time lucky.
I think this explains a lot about baby boomers, but I think that Sean will name this kid Bronzer, and in the same sort of way that, like, you have random and other new names.
Yeah.
I think naming a kid after a piece of makeup because they're making up.
Cute.
Because they're making shit up as they go along and they're making up together. Definitely won't read into the meaning of Sterling and Bronzer at all.
No, of course not. They're definitely two equal things that are equal first.
Yeah. So it's crazy how those both happen in 6.5. I think we're leaving our discussion question up.
We are, because we only really uploaded last episode 1 to 2 days ago. I think maybe 2. So to reiterate, last discussion question was, what's a wacky idea for a Home Alone-esque trap that you'd like to see in a situation like Mia's from last chapter? We've had one answer and it was fun, but we're not going to read it out yet. We'll
saving it for later.
So that's us.
Yeah, that's our show.
Yeah. Make sure you check out Wildbow's Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. This is his desperate chase through the woods. We're just improvising chemical weapons.
Please give us a rating and review on the podcatcher of your choice.
And if you want to chat to us about the show or follow along with live reads, check out our channel on the Doof Media Discord. Find the invite link at doofmedia.com/discord.
Bye for now.
And we'll see y'all later.